Hello everybody. Today I'm going to do a not comic video. I've been watching a lot of these YouTube videos called 10 hard books or 10 difficult books that I want to read but you don't have to. And I think that title's weird. I'll probably still name that title just because I do want to like sort of link with sort of that sort of concept. But I never really got, everyone explained the you don't have to, and to be honest, I never really got the you don't have to part of those titles. Obviously, you don't have to read these. In fact, there's no way you're going to want to read these because these are extremely specific to me. But they are long books, and they are the kind of books that you're like, well, I'll read that one this year, and I'll read a whole bunch of other stuff other years. So I'm just going to jump in to some of it. Here's an obvious one, and this one sort of has a strategy attached to it. I just went and grabbed the complete works of William Shakespeare. Now, I had no plans to read this book, this actual physical book, or all 39 or 38, however you look at it, of his plays, start to finish. But I only did this for 1 year, but a few years ago, my favorite play, Macbeth is definitely my favorite play. I like a few other ones I think that are up there. But a few years ago I was like, well, I'm going to spend one full year with a single play. Like I'll pick it at random. Before I didn't pick it at random. And when I say I'll spend a full year with a single play, meaning that I'll read other books about it. I didn't listen to podcasts when I did Macbeth, but I'm doing it for now. And basically, I'll just, and read from the play, try to go watch it, find, at the time, there probably wasn't as many of those YouTube productions, and now there are. And so I restarted that. And in fact, I might do Macbeth again, because I like Macbeth so much, and I've now found so many other peripheral things for even the play I'm doing now, which I decided at random to be The Tempest. So there's just so many podcasts out there, so many versions, especially for the famous plays, so many versions of the play on stage, and of course all the big ones have a dozen movies each. If you pick the 5 or 10 biggest Shakespeare plays, you could watch 10 or 12 movies, and Romeo and Juliet probably has 20. So anyway, that's the first book, and but this one's going to be a slow one. I mean, basically the rest of my life, essentially, if I'm going to be doing one per year. Maybe some of the smaller plays where there's not a lot of like peripheral stuff, maybe I'll do 2 in a year. We'll see. And along with that, I don't know if I'll count this on there, but Harold Bloom is probably the most famous critic, and he's actually super obnoxious when he talks about The Tempest, to be honest. But he's written a lot about Shakespeare, and this is his sort of giant book about each play and stuff. So this would be the peripheral reading also, but I have I just happen to have. I was lucky with The Tempest because I actually already had some different books of criticism and stuff like that, and then a few books where people are writing about it. So I'm putting that one on there. I mean, this is a big book on its own, probably something like this one's not quite so big, 750 pages. So anyway, add that one to that list. Another one is if you've watched this video, you know my wife is Polish, and this is a writer I really like. She won the Nobel Prize in 2018, and I've only read 2 of her books. I read a book of short stories called like a Primeval or something like that. And then I read a great book called Flights. They were both great, to be honest. And she does not have the, her writing style, at least in the 2 books I read, is, it doesn't feel like you're reading like epic Russian literature or anything like that. She feels a lot more like a Latin writer to me. Maybe just like things set in Eastern Europe and around the world and stuff. So this is her huge book. The Book of Jacob. It's about 1,000 pages. Interestingly enough, it's not a manga. It starts with the high page count and then sort of winds down. So if you look at the back of the book, it's like page 18 or whatever. And so this is her big giant book about some Jewish religious person in a cult or something, and everywhere this person travels, probably plenty of weird situations, magical realism, fun history, but it is definitely her big giant, basically brick book. Because Bieguni, well, that's how it's called. What it's called in Polish, but Flights was its own sort of exciting read, but it was a bunch of stories sort of mixing together and stuff like that. So this is her big one. That's one I want to read. Another one, and this one I'm actually reading already. I was going to say that I have some books. I mean, I actually was surprised War and Peace wasn't on more people's big books. I have found, though, that it's not a hard book. It's just a really long book. And so this one I'm a little bit cheating already. I'm already 500 pages in, probably out of 1,200 in this version. And I'm actually doing something weird with this book is that I'm reading, this is a more modern translation, and then there's like a classic translation that's updated, that's fixed a few things. I don't know where to do with that. And I'm actually just going back and forth between them. And I'm not reading War and Peace twice. I'm reading like 4 or 5 chapters here, 4 or 5 chapters over there, or maybe 1 and 1 or whatever. I'm not really worried about, keeping it even or anything like that. And, I'm 500 pages in now, and I would have thought that what would have ended up happening is that I would have heavily preferred one over the other and maybe just quit reading the other one. But that didn't happen. My experience so far, and this could change, I'm not through the whole book. My experience so far is that when I switch, and I don't know if it's a tactile thing because the book is a little bit different or what, but when I switch books or when I switch translations, I actually have a lot more focus on it. Like when a new one just seems so much more clear. And it's happened now a whole bunch of times, so it's not like, one translation's better than the other. When I switch, I go, this is just so much clearer to me, after spending 4 or 5 chapters with this one or 4 or 5 chapters with the other one, which is real interesting. I'll do the same probably. I have 2 versions of this. This is not as popular. This person won the Nobel Prize also. This is Henryk Sienkiewicz. So this is, though, like late 1800s, early 1900s. This is like his epic book. And there's 3 of them, so I'm only showing you one, but there's 3 parts to it. So it says, it's one of these books is slightly smaller than War and Peace, but also very huge. This one's more sort of an action adventure or something, as far as I can tell when I read about it. So this is with Fire and Sword, part 1 of 3. So this is a big one, and then like I said, just happened to be into a lot of like the Slavic stuff. But this, this I think would feel like something more from Central and Eastern Europe, where this, this writer who is from Poland is not like that at all. And then I will jump to a couple nonfiction books. So, these are things I studied basically. So this is Security Analysis by Benjamin Graham and David L. Dodd. And this is Warren, if you read like a biography on Warren Buffett, or you found out how Warren Buffett became a great investor, I can't remember it, but a more simple version of this book, essentially by Graham and Dodd. I can't believe I forgot the name of that book. That's like a very important book in The Intelligent Investor. There you go. This is a more technical version, and this one, same with investment valuation here. I don't know that I would just sit and read this beginning to end, or maybe I would just put a bookmark in, read 200 pages of it or something like that, put a bookmark in and read it again. But at this point, I'm not, just the way my career went or whatever. I've learned certain things and focused on certain things that I don't have that. I never did like sort of the wide amount of like when you go and get your degree or something. So I think it would be good with a little more experience to read a few of these things and almost be like reading a rule book again after you've played a game a whole bunch of times. And that's sort of what I'm thinking about this doing. You find some rule that you thought you were doing right, or you find something, some better way to do something, or some little detail that you missed or something. That happened to us today with Uno. We went, we play Uno all the time. But me and my wife had an argument we were teaching my son how to play, we had an argument. I mean, we didn't have an argument, we didn't fight, but we viewed the rules a little bit differently. And then, you know, who's read the Uno rule book? You just think you know how to play, right? Another nonfiction book. So this one's cheating here a little bit because this is like the condensed version. So this is Memoirs of the Second World War by none other than Winston Churchill. You may have heard of him. But an important part, I'm showing you this book. I checked it out of the library because I haven't bought these yet. But this is an abridgment of the 6 volumes of his book, The Second World War. And so I've read a lot of history books at this point in my life, and a lot of them, and a big chunk of them are just World War II books. And I've just found that I'm a little bit tired of reading the version of the book that's by the historian that's really smart and read everything and done all the work for you as far as like sources and stuff like that. And book to book, there might be something different or something in style, but at the end of the day, it's like a smart guy writing Wikipedia for you. And I found that I absolutely love the actual first-hand accounts or autobiographies or something like that. Now, this is not exactly that, and this is 6 volumes, so I would read one of these per year, one of these every other year. And I haven't bought them yet because I don't know when I would start it, and my wife doesn't like me buying a whole bunch of books. So if like 6 books showed up, she might be, you know, I'm like, I bought the set, honey. Also, since I'm in no hurry for it, I'm hoping I can find it for cheap. Because, you know, it's one of those things where if you just keep your eye out for it, eventually you'll see it for cheap. Another book that's actually 3 books, 3 parts, is Parting the Waters. So this is basically, America in the King years from 1954 to 1963. And I'm a good 500 pages into this. And I've been actually reading this on and off for a long time. This is also one of those books where, I would take advantage of the index and read, 10, 15 pages of wherever I was in that context. But I did recently start over from the beginning. This is obviously Martin Luther King is the main figure here, but it's not really a biography of Martin Luther King. It's funny that I just said that about historians, and this is definitely by a very pure historian. This book was turned on to me by Christopher Hitchens, so maybe like a decade and a half ago or something like that. So he called it a biography of America in that time period, right? And so it is, because Martin Luther King is not even at the beginning. There's a bunch of incredibly interesting people that like Vernon Johns, this early on. You wouldn't maybe quite call them civil rights guys, but they were definitely people that were maybe, they were like precursors to basically, telling the situation that African Americans were in to fuck off, essentially. Of course, Martin Luther King is famous for a reason. And right now, the point where I finished, I haven't opened this book up in a couple months, but the point where I finished is, when we look back on it, we think of Martin Luther King as, being guided by the principles of Gandhi and stuff, and the no violence or whatever. But up to the point where I was reading, he hadn't gotten there yet. So it's like, and it's detailed and big enough, and remember there's 3 of them about this size. It's that it felt like Martin Luther King year 1, because he's still very youthful. He's finding that he's becoming the voice of an oppressed people, essentially, at that point. And he doesn't have quite the gravitas yet, or he's arguing with another character. I call him a character, but he existed in real life. Basically a gay communist from the Northeast that came to help with the Montgomery boycott. His name slips my mind, but I went and bought that guy's biography too, because he just seemed incredibly interesting. But obviously a gay communist from the North, black guy obviously, but gay communist from the North, probably not the best person to lead your civil rights movement in 1954, probably even among the African Americans, right? Especially since a lot of the protests were built from church. Anyway, I'm like basically enthralled with this story and the way it's told. And I'm only in like the first 400 or 500 pages, right? So there's a whole bunch more. So that's a book that I'm going to read. You don't have to. Then, so this is one I've always had on my list. And I'm going to put on, also say The Kindly Ones, which is also a big, thick book that was very controversial. Well, start with this. 2666 by Robert Bolano. This is the Spanish edition, but I really just checked these out so I can make this video. So some of these I haven't bought yet. Something I've always been interested in. There's probably a bunch of other Latin American authors that I would still put above this, but since this is a big book article, this is one that I will get to. Another one that I've heard, compared to this, because there's apparently a lot of violence in this, or what, is The Kindly Ones, which is a Holocaust book. And I would read that just, I heard it's a very difficult read for obvious reasons, as a lot of Holocaust books are. But one thing that interests me so much about it is that the way, it's an American author, but it won all these awards in France. And then when it gets published in the United States, I'm not sure what the original language was, but in the United States, it was absolutely hated. So I just find that real interesting, and also, of course, the story and the point of view and stuff will probably give me certain feelings. And last but not least, this is also one that's cheating a little bit, but this is the Odyssey, and throw on the Illiad on here too. And it's funny, I'm like I've always like shied away from the epic poems. So, I've read from them, especially in school, and every now and then someone will quote them, or something I'm watching or hearing or talking about will quote them. And, I'll go read a passage or something like that. So what I would say are the famous epic poems, the ones that have stuck around me or that I read a little bit in school, obviously not all of it, are, of course, Odyssey and the Iliad, like I already said, Paradise Lost, and then Dante. So the Inferno mostly, but people never talk about like Paradiso and the other parts to that. So I do have a sort of new interest where maybe I'll work through them. And one of the reasons is that this is a newer translation, and I actually, on a podcast I listened to called Conversations with Tyler, who's an economist, but his interests go beyond economics. That's, he's a professor of economics, but he interviews people from, every which way. And he had Emily Wilson on, who is this translator, and she's a professor of classical studies at the University of Pennsylvania. She actually sounded much older than she looks here. But so got me very interested. I checked, the Iliad's much bigger. I checked this book out, and I'm actually reading the introduction and the translator's notes. And this is not a 5-page introduction. So this is if you take the translator's note and the introduction and the maps, you're going on to 100 pages, so 91 basically. So I'm actually reading through that. I don't plan to read the Odyssey anytime soon. Maybe in the next year, we'll see. Like, those epic poems are tough to read, and it's not unlike reading Shakespeare, I guess, if you're just trying to read it straight through. But you got to read it's fewer words, and you got to read it slower. So it's sort of a catch-22 there. But I'm gonna throw the Iliad on there too, because her interview, I really liked it a lot, and made me interested in this. And then connected to that made me go, well, maybe I should take some real time with Dante and Milton also one day, but we'll see. Anyway, those are my long and hard books that I want to read, and you don't have to, which should go without saying.